Glib Audiostories presents The Psychic, Episode 2, by Silas, Maximo, and Pinkleat. Rob was sitting at a bar, ready to drink heavily to get his mind off all the shit that had just happened with his friend, or ex-friend, Ashley, when he saw a familiar face in the crowd. His brow creased slightly as he tried to put together if that was really him, or if he was just going crazy. Finally, he decided to just go up and ask. Before Rob could reach Gideon, he would walk into what looked like a back room at the bar with some other people in suits. A large woman would stop him. "Where do you think you're going, sir?" she would ask him. This all felt familiar somehow, as if he had seen the scene in a dream. His eyes narrowed slightly. "I need to see Gideon. We're, related, don't mind me." The lady would raise an eyebrow, looking over Rob. She would nod. "Good luck with whoever Gideon is," she would say, letting him pass. Entering the room, it seemed like the back was bigger and nicer than the front. It was old-looking, but clearly well kept, as if stepping back into the 1920s. There were people of all shapes and sizes, literally. Some had horns on their heads, or odd skin color like green. It was clearly a bar for psionics. Gideon would be near the back, his hands in his suit pockets as he talked to three other people there. Rob looked around, a hint of a smile growing on his face. He shook his head. Of course Gideon would be hanging out in a place like this. Now, where was he? Rob looked around for a second before his eyes locked on the white-haired man. He walked over, trying to seem nonchalant, or as nonchalant as one could seem while feeling a little tipsy, as he walked up to a person who probably didn't recognize him in the slightest. A woman standing with Gideon's group would notice Rob, her unnatural ice-blue eyes looking at him. She would say something to the others, and the other two, both Asian, would glance at Rob. Gideon wouldn't turn around, instead picking up a drink and taking a sip from it. Rob would be silent for a few seconds, before leaning over slightly and saying, "Gideon?" The voice and face would be unfamiliar to Gideon as he looked over. The look in his eyes was cold and unfamiliar, but he put a smirk on his face. "You seem to know me by name," he would muse, swirling the drink around in his hand. Rob froze suddenly, just like he used to when he was a kid. Seeing Gideon again, it brought back memories, but seeing the cold look made those memories warp. He spoke, finally. "Guess I look kind of different, huh?" He laughed a bit, though it was more of a scoff. "Older, maybe? It's me, Rob, your nephew." The expression on Gideon's face would change in an instant, the coldness of it melting away into the Gideon Rob knew. "Rob?" he would ask, quickly reaching out to pull Rob into a hug. "Where have you been? Ava and I were so worried about you. You shouldn't have left without a word." At the hug, Rob would awkwardly pat the man's back in an ill attempt to return the gesture. His face would crumple slightly at the man's word, but he regained his composure quickly. "I've been doing fine on my own," Rob said in an almost sing-song voice. "That was a lie. You know, I've been here and there." He purposely ignored the man's last statement. He had to leave. Didn't Gideon know that by now? "I looked everywhere for you," Gideon would say, pulling back to look at Rob. "How old are you now? Where are you staying?" Rob had an almost dead look in his face when the man pulled back. "You didn't have to. I'm 30. I have my own apartment." Gideon would catch Rob's expression quickly. "Here, let me buy you a drink. We can talk," he would say, waving to the waiter to get another drink. The people who Gideon had been with would move to the side, talking amongst themselves as they glanced over at the two. That would be wonderful." Rob rubbed his face, leaning on the bar next to Gideon. "So, how have you been? Got a good job?" Rob laughed a bit at that. "Yeah, oh, I've been great." Gideon would raise an eyebrow. "Really?" he would ask, sounding unconvinced. Rob shook his head and rolled his eyes. "I made a friend. I lived, but, shit happens." Gideon would press his lips together and look at Rob. "Did someone hurt you?" Rob's top lip would curl upward in a look of disgust for a split second before he just looked dead again. "No, Gideon, I'm fine." That was his way of saying it was my fault without wanting to actually admit it. "Don't do that," Gideon would say, holding up his hand. Neither of us are children or stupid. Don't sugarcoat things for me. Rob huffed, putting his face in his hands. You don't want me to sugarcoat shit? Fine. I lost a good friend this morning because I'm an idiot who thought fucking people you're close to was okay, and he took a deep breath and let it out. I feel kind of shit right now. Gideon wouldn't move a muscle as blackness surrounded them, almost as if shielding them from the outside. Everything would be much quieter in there. Gideon would sigh softly. I'm sorry you went through that, Rob. Rob looked around them and frowned. At Gideon's next words, that frown would only grow. See, this is what I didn't want. You didn't want my sympathy or my effort to make you feel a little bit better? I didn't want your pity. Look, I'm a fucking idiot, but I know when I'm being talked down to. This is not pity, Rob, Gideon would say, gesturing to the bubble. And I am in no way talking down to you. Rob took another deep breath in. All right, then let's talk about something else, shall we? All right, Gideon would say with a nod. Did you go to college after you left? Rob laughed a bit at that. No. God, no. Gideon would nod. What about work? Do you have a good job? Rob shrugged. You could say that. Oh, that's good. You working in an office? Gideon would ask, no longer drinking his drink. God, no. Rob laughed, still drinking his own. You gonna dance around the question or tell me what you do? Gideon would ask, nudging Rob with his elbow lightly. Rob made a face at that, seeming to contemplate whether or not he should actually tell him for a second, then, finally, I'm a whore, Gideon. Gideon's face would not change. Why go into the profession? He would ask, seemingly okay with it. Rob downed the rest of his drink and pushed the cup away from him. Because it's what I'm good at, and, getting a different job in this economy is shit. You could have come back and stayed with me, Gideon would say, glancing at Rob to see his expression. Rob rubbed his face with his hand. No, I couldn't. Yes, you could have. Look, man, I couldn't. I was already deep into some shit, and he sighed. I wasn't going to cause you any more undue stress than I already had. Rob, there's nothing you could have brought that I either haven't been through or couldn't handle, Gideon would say, serious. It caused me more stress when I couldn't find you and started to imagine the worst. Rob just stared into his empty glass. For a long minute he said nothing. Then, maybe. Gideon would close his eyes and sigh. Where's your apartment at? Down the street. Why? Gideon would open his eyes, the whole of the eye black and endless looking. I can help you, Rob. You won't have to do your job anymore, but I can't help you unless you want the help. I don't need it. He frowned at the sight. I'm doing fine. He sighed after a minute. Look, you guys are too good for me, okay? You're the perfect little family, and I'm just a fucked up retarded faggot who gets himself into more trouble than he needs to be. Rob, the grass always appears greener on the other side, but it's not. I got Ava's mom pregnant after one night of sex, and you know what she told me when I tried to do the right thing and marry her? I know you won't be a good husband to me, but I'll give you the opportunity to be a good father. Can you imagine how that felt? I've done everything to prove to Mel that I'm a good guy. Rob just stared. It seemed to be the first time Gideon had really opened up to him, and it hit him like a ton of bricks. No one and nothing is perfect, Rob. You can't assume things like that. He sighed. But you're good people. I'm just not. No, not everyone is good, Rob. You just think they are without knowing the full facts, he would say with a sigh. Rob pressed his lips together and fanned himself a bit faster. Maybe. I still think people can be mostly good. Please, let me help you, Rob. I don't want you to vanish into the night again. I want to be a part of your life, Gideon would say, his eyes still completely black. Rob licked his lips slightly and was quiet for a long minute. Then, finally, okay. All right. I think it will be better for you if you stop working to catch my drift. Don't worry about the money. I will handle that. Is there anyone you need to talk to about quitting? He shook his head. No, I'm my own boss, and I don't keep in contact with people. It's easier that way. Gideon would nod. Do you want to stay at your place or move somewhere closer to where my apartment is? He shrugged. Maybe moving would be best, but whichever's easier. All right. What's your address? He would ask. Rob gave him his address, putting his head in his hand. Gideon's eyes would go back to normal, and he would nod. Let's go get your things, then, he would say as the bubble dissipated around them. The scene of the bar had changed drastically. Some people would be plastered to the wall, stuck in what looked like black goo, unable to get out. Another group would be giving statements to the woman Gideon had entered with, who had ice blue eyes. Gideon would put his money at the bar. Let's go, Rob, he would say, walking over to another man who was talking to the other two people Gideon had come in with. Gideon would walk up to him and give him Rob's address. The man would nod and seemingly open up a portal on the wall into Rob's apartment. Rob's eyes widened slightly. This was the weirdest shit he'd seen in his life, but he said nothing about it. He followed Gideon. Gideon would let Rob step through the portal into his apartment. He would text something on his phone. I'll have people come and gather everything. But if you want to grab your clothes and maybe anything important, I'll help you carry it to the car. Rob nodded and went and grabbed some things. His stash would be wrapped up in some clothes that he took with him, along with his medication. His apartment was an old, run-down studio with an old bed in the corner, water stains on the walls and roof, and a few kitchen appliances in the corner across from his bed. Gideon wouldn't pay any mind to how the apartment looked. All right, Martha's downstairs. She'll take us to my complex. Okay, he gestured to the door. After you. Gideon would nod, going down the stairs to the street where a black car would be parked out front. Rob walked with Gideon silently. He didn't know what to say at that point, so he just didn't. Gideon would sit next to Rob in the car. You have a phone? He would ask. Rob nodded. You may want to tell your friends where you're going so they don't worry, he would say. Rob would laugh. Oh no, darling. I had one friend and she left. Gideon would say with a nod. Then let me give you my number so you do have a friend to contact, he would say with a smile. Rob would shrug and pull out his phone. Gideon would enter his number into Rob's phone and vice versa for his own phone. Everything is going to be okay, Rob. Rob was silent as he took his phone back. So how does this work? Am I allowed to fuck people who aren't paying me? What are my limits? Gideon would raise his eyebrow. As long as it's all consensual, age-appropriate, and you're wearing protection, I'm not going to force you to do anything, Rob, but I won't hold my tongue anymore. Thank God, he laughed, then shrugged. Only fair. You know, I don't think you ever did tell me what you've been up to over the 10 years I was gone. You never asked, Gideon would say with a shrug. Got a big promotion at work. Ava's in high school now. She's become very independent and really a lot like her grandmother, he would say with a chuckle. Rob would raise a brow. Like her grandmother? Mel's mom, he would clarify quickly. She and Judy get along like peas and carrots. Rob would smile a bit at that. That's good. Gideon would smile and nod. Oh, yeah, it is. What about you? Have you done anything interesting in the 12 years you've been running around? He shrugged. I've lived, I guess you could say. Like, I know it sounds weird, but, doing all this? On my own? I didn't think I would survive, but... He gestured to the world around them. Here we are. I always told you that you were stronger than you thought, Gideon would say with a smirk. Rob sighed through his nose. Yeah, I guess you did. They would pull up to Gideon's apartment building, which looked very much the same since Rob had left 12 years ago. Gideon would go up to the front desk, where his receptionist would give him a key. Gideon would hand the key to Rob. Here's your new place. It's on the same floor as my place, but a few doors away. Rob's brow would crease as he took the key. That was fast. I get things done, Gideon would say with a shrug. Also job perks. Rob sniffed. Did I ever ask you what you do for work? No, you never did, he would respond simply. Rob waited for a proper answer before cocking a brow. So? I work for a branch of the government that deals with psionics and other issues regarding the state, Gideon would say with a shrug. Rob would nod. Guess that makes sense. Actually, it made a lot fall into place. After a minute, Rob's lips pursed and he asked, "Hey, why are you still helping me?" A part of Rob thought this must be some sort of trick. He couldn't fathom why it wouldn't be. No one had ever been as kind to him as Gideon always had, and this whole situation just felt off to him. He suddenly wondered if he was dreaming, and if he was, if it would turn out as terribly as the rest of his dreams. "Because you're my family, and it's the right thing to do. I always wished that someone had been there for me, so I'm just putting into the world what I wanted," he would say with a small smile. "Plus, I care about you, Rob." "But why?" Rob would ask, still confused. "You have no reason to care about me after I took up space for 2 years, then just left you like that. You should hate me." "I can't hate you, Rob," Gideon would say, shaking his head. "You're important to me." "I still don't get it, but okay. Care to walk me to my board?" "Sure," Gideon would say with a smile, leading the way to the apartment. Rob would follow him, quiet for a minute, then just say, "Thanks." "Of course, Rob," Gideon would say, patting him on the back. He would open the door to the apartment. It looked identical to Gideon's, including the furnishings. Rob looked around the apartment. It felt like home already. "You can change it up as you like. This is just how they decorate all the rooms," Gideon would say, placing down Rob's stuff on the counter. "The movers will be here in an hour with your other things." Rob would take a deep breath in and let it out. "Thanks. Hey, can you, stay for a little bit?" "Sure thing," Gideon would say with a smile. Rob smiled back, if only a bit. "Thanks." Gideon would walk around towards the window. "Hey, I think you have a better view than me," he would say, chuckling. Rob would walk to his side. "You think?" "Oh, totally," Gideon would say with a smile. Rob laughed a bit and wiped his hands on his jeans. "You know, Ava's going to lose her mind when she finds out you're back," Gideon would say with a chuckle. A sudden smile grew on Rob's face. "How old's Ava now?" "She's 18, Gideon would say with a smirk. "I'd like to see her again. Do you think she'd want to see me?" "Of course she would. She was so upset when you left," Gideon would say. "She'll probably cry tears of joy at seeing you again." Rob scratched the back of his head and let out a, "Huh. You think she even remembers me?" "Probably. She bought you a skirt for Christmas the first year you left. Thought you would come back to get it." His face fell. "Oh, God." A wave of guilt suddenly washed back over him. He licked his lips uncomfortably and finally let out a long sigh. "Gideon, I am so sorry. Does she still stay with you on weekends?" "Rob, you don't have to be sorry. You made a choice of what you thought you needed to do in your life, and you did it. I may not have wanted that, but I'm not you. I'm glad you're back and you're allowing me to be in your life again," Gideon would say with a smile. "And yes, she does." "I'm glad I'm back too," Rob would say simply. "Then, is she going to be here tomorrow? Maybe I can, surprise her with something." "Sure. You get brownie points for getting her something," he would say with a chuckle. Rob laughed a bit as well. "I'm thinking we do something, like, does she like getting her nails done?" "I believe so. She usually gets a—" Gideon would pause, thinking. "French manicure?" Rob nodded. "Then I'll take her out for that. Sounds nice. Mine are getting a little scraggly anyway." "It's good that you two will be able to go there then," Gideon said, glancing at his own, wondering if he would get a manicure. Rob would raise a brow upon watching the man look at his nails. "Do you want to join us?" "No. You two have fun reconnecting," Gideon would say with a smile. Rob would smile back a bit. "Can't wait." You have just finished The Psychic, Episode 2 of Glib Audio Stories. Thanks for listening.